we've experienced the storms over the 24 hours here in Tampa Bay area. Shout out to Spectrum for everything they're trying to do to get the internet, but it has been spotty today. So we're finishing up the show here and wrapping up with our special guest from the Tampa City Council, Tampa City Councilwoman. Lynn, welcome back. I'm that sorted out
Yeah.
after all the those issues. So, but we were talking about how folks can come to the next city council meeting on the 23rd. Let be heard over the issue of essentially shitty water being dumped into our water after it's been treated with heavy chemicals. And I know this is a brainchild of our mayor, and I think that's the advantage of having a city council as well. Is they need to be a check and a balance on the mayor's office and the power of the mayor's office. Because yes, when you have a good mayor who exercises and wields power responsibly, that can be a good thing for the people. But when you have a mayor who doesn't support transparency in a lot of ways, that devolves the trust of the public. And so the city council really becomes our only voice as the people when you have a mayor who, carte blanche, doesn't have anybody challenging them for reelection. And it's really difficult, as we've seen, even in certain city council members have stood up and then all of a sudden they become embroiled in scandal one way or the other. So Lynn, tell us, where's any burn files that we got to worry about? You seem to be a pretty clean cut, and above board. So I think when it comes to you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I, it's funny that anybody who says no is doesn't work for the mayor. Everybody else does. All staff works for the mayor, but council is independent, and it doesn't matter who's in the mayoral seat. We really have to have a council that's willing to research all the issues, really listen to what people want. Folks can call the mayor, try to talk to the mayor, but there's 7 of us.
Yeah.
So you have a much better opportunity. Also, every single Thursday, we're open to the public to come and speak. The mayor doesn't have that type of
Public forum. Yeah.
yeah. So and that's just how our government's designed. So regardless of who's in the mayoral seat, city council is a check and balance. That's literally how our government works.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't been for a long time. But this particular council is really focused on listening to the people and finding out what folks really want. And we are not a rubber stamp. That is not our job. If we were a rubber stamp, you wouldn't need us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, I got my ballot here actually in the mail because all of us are going to be voting, and there's some amendments on here too. And I thought maybe you could help us, understand a little bit more about these amendments.
Sure.
Well, I'm looking here. This first one, it's an amendment to the Tampa Charter regarding the creation of standing boards, and it asks the voters, shall the amendment to Section 9.01 of the Tampa Charter, clarifying that standing boards shall be created by the City Council by ordinance without requiring the mayor's recommendation, as set out by the city ordinance. And it's votes yes for the proposed amendment, no for the proposed amendment. So can you explain past the legalese that they require to put on these ballots what this gist of this amendment is about?
The gist of this amendment, just a little background. I served on the city's charter review commission in 2017.
Very important job for those who don't know. Every 10 years, the city charter comes up for review. I've advocated at the Hillsborough County Charter Review Boards for changes in how the districts are structured. So that's a very heavy responsibility, even prior to being elected or appointed to the council. So thank you for serving for us in that role.
Absolutely. And actually, the Tampa City Charter hadn't been looked at since its inception in 1975.
Wow.
This was the first Charter Review Commission, the first. That's why 4 years ago you had 18 amendments on the ballot. That was us. And I served on that Charter Review Commission along with council members Bill Carlson, Orlando Goods, and Joe Citro. So this council just knows the charter better than prior councils because we actually sat through a year-long process of reviewing everything. So what we did when we got on council, the last several months, we've been debating, hey, we had these charter changes and they made sense, but there's still a few things that are just a little confusing or need to be tightened up. And so that's what these are. We had 5 of them. Of course, remember one of those was giving the Civilian Review Board independent attorney. We
Mhm.
were going to, but 4 members of council said no to that. Actually, yeah, no, 3 members of a council said no. So it needed a supermajority and it didn't get it. So this first one would simply just allow, right now it's confusing in the charter language whether or not we can create boards and commissions as a council. And this just says, yes, both the mayor and city council have the ability to do that. And the other has to approve it. So right now the mayor can do one, but we have to approve it. And
Mhm.
this would allow us to do it, and the mayor would still have approval over it. So to me, it's a simple language shift, and so I recommend voting. I recommend voting for all of them personally, but
Okay.
this one's big. The next one, I believe, is here. I'll let you read the
Yeah,
language.
so the next amendment is regarding the appointment of city department heads. And so the way I take away from this one is that city department heads are going to have to be approved by a majority of the city council, once they're appointed by the mayor, essentially.
Well, that already happens. That's already a requirement. But when how this came up is with the last police chief.
Hmm.
What this actually does is requires interim heads to be city of Tampa employees already.
Oh, okay.
Because what happened is we had an interim head in there, Butch Delgado, and then the mayor decided to hire Mary O'Connor and call her the interim.
Mm,
So she had been hired, she was doing the job, and then council, this was 2 weeks before I was appointed. Council had to make the decision on whether or not to hire this person. Well, this person had already been doing the job.
mm.
So several council members thought, well, we're just going to she's already there. Let's just let her do her
Let
thing.
it slide. Yeah.
And so this says, no, interim people can't be hired from outside. So say someone from I don't know, Illinois was chosen. They moved their whole family down here. They're considered interim, but then council doesn't want to approve them. What? They're stuck. So we're just saying interim have to be current staff members, and then when we actually hire someone, which we already have the power to do,
Hmm.
the mayor appoints. We approve that appointment,
Gotcha.
and that's absolutely critical. So the reason this came about is to prevent what happened with the police chief from happening again.
Interesting, interesting. And then I'm looking at this next amendment. It's regarding term limits of the Tampa City Council. So, right now, essentially, you can only serve 8 years in your current district that you're in,
Mhm.
and then you have to run for a different district if you want to run for council, continue to be on the council. And this is saying that this will kind of essentially put an end to the seat shuffling, if you will, where a council member will go from a district seat to a citywide seat and then back to a district seat. One of our city council members has been on the council since the 70s. And this has essentially been the system in which they've done that. So I would almost call this the Charlie Miranda Amendment, because it seems like this is to prevent someone like Charlie from continuing to serve on the council, and it's going to say that they can serve no more than a total of 4 consecutive terms, effective with the city of Tampa elections starting in 2027. So is that accurate?
Yes, and basically what that does is it puts it in line with the mayor.
Mm.
Right now, the mayor can serve 2 terms, and then they have to wait 4 years, and they can run again. And that's exactly what it would be for council.
Yeah, like
You
Dick
could,
Greco ran, and
yeah,
he was like, "Give me a fifth term."
yeah. And so you could do two terms in a district,
Sure.
2 terms citywide, and then you have to sit out for 4 years.
Mhm.
And then you could come back. But yeah, I mean Charlie Miranda, my parents voted for him. And that was before I was born.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's one of the things to try to encourage more people.
Yeah. My
Uh
grandparents voted for Charlie. So we could, yeah, it go he's been a
yeah.
fixture on the council for many years, and in running for re-election in West Tampa
Yes,
this
he is.
this
Yes, he
this
is.
term.
He switched back to that district.
Yeah, yeah. So this last amendment that I see here is regarding, like you served on the Charter Review Advisory Commission, and essentially it moves it up from every 10 years for review to every 8 years for review. Now, how do you feel about that?
We support that because again, this was one of those things that we thought of. We were like, oh yeah, every 10 years. And then it didn't occur to us that elections are every 4 years. So we
Mhm.
needed to do it on a 4-year cycle.
Mm.
So this would do 8 years. So it would be every 8 years, but then it would match, because if anything that comes out of a charter review commission, we cannot make something go on the charter. The mayor
Mhm.
cannot, city council cannot. It is totally in the hands of the people.
So either through the amendment process here on the ballot or through the Charter Review Commission itself.
Correct, correct. And so that would be every 8 years, so that it would balance, so that it would make it to the ballot. So if we did every 10 years, then you would have to wait 2 years for that to go on a ballot.
Oh,
So
okay.
so the idea would just to sync it up with the current election cycle.
To allow direct democracy to kind of
Yes.
work in
Yep.
tandem with our election
Mhm.
cycle. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, I'm pretty clear on that. Now, the next part on my ballot here is the actual people running on here, and so I'm looking, and I find ironic for mayor, no one is challenging Mayor Castor. It's just Mayor Castor or a write-in candidate.
Well, there is a candidate. Technically, there is another candidate for mayor that only qualified through a write-in, which is why a write-in is available.
Huh. Okay.
But you don't have to write that person's name. You can write any person's name.
You know, I have to say, these last 4 years, I'm not happy with the job that the mayor's done. Some people may be. They may see certain improvements in certain neighborhoods and such, but the neighborhoods that I grew up in, the neighborhoods that are important to me, and just looking around to where the money in the city and the attention is being diverted, doesn't seem to be where the working people are. And that really hurts a lot. And the working class people are being priced out of their own neighborhoods. And they're having to move outside of our own city, out to these cheap apartments that get thrown up, in the Brandon area and such. I've seen them all the time. These pine wood, very cheap, hardly insulated. I'm sure you can hear your neighbors next door, and on a cold night, the probably doesn't retain a lot of heat. Style apartments, and then they're not even that affordable. I remember the one bedroom when my wife and I moved into when we first got married was about $1,200 a month. That same one bedroom is going for 2,000 now.
Wow. Yeah.
So when we talk about affordable housing in the city, you shouldn't have to make 75K a year just to afford decent housing in the city, because so many
Absolutely.
people don't. So many people, think of what the jobs are in Tampa. A lot of people have call center jobs in this city. So 30K a year is all people can pull in a lot of times. Our school teachers are lucky if they're pulling down 40K a year.
Well, and that's
Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. So we're back live here. Team, the internet this morning has just been atrocious. At first, I gave a shout out to Spectrum, but now I'm giving y'all 0 stars on how the performance is today. We are not happy. My boy Carlos needs a refund on today's internet charges. But Lynn, I appreciate you, sticking through this as a trooper. We went through all the charter amendments, and you were just going on about affordable housing and the need to actually rehab existing housing rather than a lot of new development. That oftentimes, this same issue is nationwide. I work in the DC Maryland area, and one of the things we're working on right now is rent control at the local level. And I sat there the other day during a workshop and I heard so many real estate developers walk in and cry poverty. Oh my God, if you cap rent, we're not going to be able to do development. And it's almost like they were trying to hold development like a hostage. For political points, like, oh, well, if you support rent control, then we're not going to develop in your district. Now you're a citywide candidate, so you represent the whole city. So there's not much of they can hold, hostage development or whatnot in the city because the city needs development regardless. And so this issue of affordable rent, because we have so many people who are not homeowners because they can't afford to be, whether it's because they're millennials with student loan debt or they're working class people who just haven't built up the credit they need, to be in a spot to buy a home. And if you look at the home prices, I mean, in East Tampa right now, we're seeing homes go for as high as $500,000 in a neighborhood where like the medium income is less than 40K.
Yeah.
That's ludicrous. I mean, how are people going to afford to buy homes in that? Well, but what we are seeing are landlords who can afford to buy those homes and then charge people rent, which takes up half their income.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very true. And actually, earlier this year, while I was on council, I did vote to put it on the ballot stating that we have a housing emergency.
Hmm.
So again, it wasn't even up to me. We had to put it in front of the people. And again, council did not vote to approve that. So I 100% agree. We need both rehabbing the housing we have, and we also need to build new housing. We need to do it all. But what we're doing in this city is we're building giant houses instead of what I like to call, or most people call, missing middle housing.
Hmm.
So duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes.
Hmm.
And if you want to know what that looks like in a neighborhood, I recommend you go down to Hyde Park.
Mm.
Historic Hyde Park has duplexes, triplexes, and quads. They'll have an apartment quad right next to a giant home
Hmm.
because that's how we used to build in this city. That's how most cities were built.
Yeah.
You'll see the same thing when you go on Davis Island. So these are considered really fancy parts of town, but they have the type of housing that allows people from different incomes to live there.
Yeah, yeah. Even where I'm renting up north when I'm in the DC area, the neighborhood, in that part of Maryland, is exactly that. There's duplexes in the neighborhood, but also really big houses. There's some quads, and it, like, you can see the mix of income and people afford to live there,
Yeah.
and it works,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. And that's the kind of thing we are looking to allow different neighborhoods to try. One of the things that's coming up on that very same council day, the 23rd, February 23rd, is we're going to be looking at accessory dwelling units.
mm,
And those are like mother-in-laws
yeah.
that are behind people's houses.
My neighbor has one
Yeah.
here in Tampa. Has a mother-in-law suite.
Currently in Seminole Heights, they're allowed, and there are a lot that have been grandfathered in over time. But one of the things we're trying to do is possibly expand them in the central planning district, which is pretty much everything north of South Tampa
Hmm.
and south of, Fowler, Fletcher ish.
Gotcha.
So the big middle part of the city.
Yeah.
And that is, again, working with
Which is,
communities that want
Forest
them.
Hills,
Mhm.
Wellswood, the
Yeah.
Riverside, Seminole Heights.
But letting the neighborhoods that want to give it a try, because there are some neighborhoods that are still afraid of it. They're worried about that it's going to attack the fabric of their community. So my goal is to try it in places where folks are willing to give it a shot or want to see how it works, and then others can see that it doesn't, you know, adversely affect the character of a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And also, these neighborhoods also tend to have lots that are available that we could put quadplexes on. I mean, not everyone is going to be able to get a single family home to buy initially.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's what starter homes are. And we have lost the concept of a starter home in our society.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
and it's okay to start with something smaller
I mean, my
and sell
parents
it.
bought their home in '83 for $40,000. That same home today is appraised almost at 300,000. I would not be able to buy
No.
my own parents' home
Mm-mm.
in
No.
today's market.
And that's exactly it. So we have to be able to help people grow their own wealth
Hmm.
by starting small,
Yeah.
buying a small condo or one of the fourplexes, and then being able to, get the equity out of that and buy something bigger. That is traditionally how our
Mhm.
parents' generation did purchase and build up. And so I would love to see more of that. And just by building the different types of housing, we are also encouraging Tampanos to stay in Tampa.
Mhm.
I don't want people moving out into the county or just surrounding counties, because does that do? That goes with my number 2 issue. That puts more cars on the road.
Ah, yeah. Cars are definitely an issue here. I mean, with the traffic, um, being forced to have to expand interstates and destroy historic neighborhoods by that measure, the potholes, which put wear and tear on tons of working people's cars every single day. It's definitely a challenge, but it's so refreshing to actually have someone on the council that you can talk to that has a grasp of these issues. Sometimes you talk to other council members and they're only concerned about this little niche because there's oftentimes there are people writing them checks to care about those issues. And you seem to have a broad understanding of so many issues that are affecting the community. And so I really appreciate. I want to make sure that we get you on the council. So I'm looking here at mine here. District 3, and there's KJ Allen, Janet Cruz, George the Hunted Fishev, Lynn Hurtak, and the Jose Vasquez. And I'm showing everyone right here today, Lynn Hurtak. This is my pick, and that's who I am bubbling this on my ballot for.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I
Right there,
uh,
y'all. Yeah, that's what you need to do with your ballot right there. Vote for Lynn Hurtak.
Thank you. And I started out my career as a Title I elementary school teacher. And from there I've spent the last over 13 years working in international, really looking at the people's perspective is just how I went into this, and working on, again, as a neighborhood leader. So when I went into this job, when I got appointed, I said, I'm just going to do things the way I think they ought to be done, because no one put me on, no one gave me money, no one did anything to get me on. I was just appointed. So I thought, we're just going to see what people think. And people overwhelmingly have loved what I'm doing. So I tell folks, if you are donating to me or helping me, all you're saying is that you like what I'm doing and you want me to continue doing it. I will Favors aren't a thing for me. You're just you are approving of the work I'm doing and you want to see it continue.
Well, Lynn, you definitely are someone who, it was put out there. I remember when we were looking at people to appoint and such, and we were talking to other community leaders we wanted to see on, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm glad you're on the council, and
Thank
I'm
you.
glad that you have the other folks out there. We'll go to your website, lynnhurtak.com, and throw you a donation or sign up to volunteer. Get out there to the polls, because there are powers that be in this city that do not want people powered candidates. They want candidates that they can buy and sell and utilize those votes when necessary to push through special interests that, in the grand scheme of things, just want to fleece money out of the working class pocket.
Yep.
And that's not what our city should be about. That's not the city that we want. We want a city that has a vibrant culture that was built by the working class. We're right here in Ybor City on 7th Avenue, where it was cigar rollers, where it was people who would sweep streets, that there was people who are painters. There were so many people who built this city with their hard work in their hands, so that their grandkids and their great grandkids like myself could one day, have college degrees and be able to serve. But
Absolutely.
what they were not thinking is that those same grandkids would have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt and can't afford
Yep.
to buy the same houses that they first started in.
Yes.
And so this cycle is something that we have to put a stop to. And so I'm glad that you're someone who's there to advocate for affordable housing. When the issue of rent control comes up again, I was hearing the council was proposing, rent caps as high as 20%. Let me tell you, up in Maryland, the rent caps, we're going at 1.4%, because the difference is, If you have a $2,000 a month rent and they raise it 5%, that's $100 a month.
Yeah.
For a working class family that's making, maybe supporting 2 kids on less than 40K a year, it is virtually impossible to afford an extra $1,200 increase, you know? But $27, $28, people might be able to afford that. And that's the difference. Now, when I saw the rent caps here as high as 20%, it's like, to me, it's you're just saying, well, we're only going to go at the absolute worst price gougers. Everyone else can jack up rent as high as they want, essentially. And so I really hope the city council revisits the whole rent control issue with a different perspective after the election.
Uh, Unfortunately, the state legislature has a new law going through right now that would
Shocker, preemption
preempt
from the DeSantis boys.
the ability for us to consider rent control. Again, let's just see what happens with it and what we can do to work around it. But one of the other things that we have in this city for folks who are struggling, we have put inordinate amount of money, like more than ever before, into helping people stay in their housing. So if folks have trouble with that rent increase, or if they have trouble getting a down payment, or if they have trouble with a landlord, or if they have they're facing eviction, we have a hotline that folks can call to get help from the city, and that number is 813-307-5555. I'll say it again, 813-307-5555. And that hotline is open Monday through Friday from 4 to 7 right now, right after working hours. And the city will actually, we have a new pilot project with Bay Area Legal. Well, we will pay for Bay Area Legal to help with an eviction notice, or issues with landlord, fixing things. So give that hotline a call and see what we can do for you. It's only for City of Tampa folks. So if you live in the county, you can still call the number and they can send you to county people. But we're doing.
And for those of you who, well, there we go. We're having connection issues again, so it might be the right way to close us out. But if the stream will pick it back up, I think it will. You can join suncoastnormal.org, become a member. This is definitely, the organization here throughout the Suncoast of Florida that's making it happen for folks. Follow us on social media. Tune into the rotation each and every Sunday. We're here right now with Lynn Hurtak as part of our Tampa City Council candidate series. And with the city elections coming up, it's so important that folks understand, what the issues are, who are the people that have control of these issues, and who's going to be representing them in the halls of city government. And so as I was looking here on my ballot, Lynn, I got you're back here for District 3. For District 2, for those of you who were watching a couple weeks ago, we had Robin Lockett on the show. And then if you go back, another week here on the rotation, we had Sonia Brookins, and those are all candidates. So we've had District 1, District 2, and District 3 citywide candidates on the show, and so I'm so happy to have folks coming out here and willing to support. Hopefully, we can get some of our West Tampa district candidates to come on the show and talk a little bit about it. But as we go, Lynn, one of the things turns around, we reporting and wanting to, because really what we want to see is, are there any disparities on the back end? Who's getting the tickets versus who's actually going to jail? Because if officer discretion is something that goes into play, I would like to, be able to analyze how that discretion is being utilized, and what are the demographic breakdowns? Because one of the issues we had here in the city of Tampa is biking while black. That 9 out of 10 bike tickets in the city of Tampa went to African American men who make up, a very small portion of the city population, but got 90% of the tickets. The same thing that we examined when we were fighting in the city of Lakeland, their decrim ordinance. I pulled their numbers, and in 2015, they had 401 marijuana arrests, but 200 of them were African American men. So you get 50% of all arrests from 6% of the city population. So, I would like to see this city council, whether publish it on their website or
Absolutely. And that's one of the things when folks bring us that information, we can ask. So
Yeah.
absolutely, I'll ask.
All right. Awesome. Well, Lynn, thank you so much for coming on the show. And
Thanks for
folks,
having me.
tune into the rotation each and here at Suncoast Normal. Don't forget to like and share if you're Suncoast Normal on all social media. And again, Lynn Hurtak for City Council. Go to lynnhurtak.com and support it. Lynn is someone who is people powered. She's got my vote, and she deserves your vote. And everybody, peace out. Have a great one.